Colorado is one of 16 states that's joined a federal lawsuit against Standard & Poor's, accusing the ratings agency of defrauding investors. Joining us now is Colorado's Attorney General John Suthers. Welcome.
Glad to be with you.
So it is 2013, 5 years after the financial crisis that crushed the economy and damaged individual investors and homeowners. Why now with the lawsuit?
There's been a great deal of evidence gathering that's been taking place over the last several years. Frankly, the federal government has spearheaded that evidence gathering, but several of the states had kind of a working group that worked with the federal government in gathering evidence. And frankly, at this point in time, we feel that we have enough evidence to go forward.
Can you specify for us the level of fraud in Colorado, who was hurt by how much, and just how severely, in your estimation, the state was impacted?
Well, I want to make sure you understand that at least Colorado's claim is somewhat different than the federal claim. We're not out to prove that the ratings were bogus. I suspect the federal government will be able to prove that. Ours is, at its essence, a false advertising claim. S&P has represented to the public and investors for years that they are wholly objective, wholly independent, and not motivated by any kind of financial incentive in their ratings. We're out to disprove that. We believe we have evidence that between 2004 and 2007, and continuing even after that point in time, as they saw this huge market for these residential mortgage-backed securities develop, they were willing to, frankly, change their standards of evaluation to make sure that they maintained their dominant market share and didn't lose business to other raters. And so in essence, they were representing to the public and investors. We're absolutely objective about this. We believe we have evidence that they were in fact not, and that essentially this was a deceptive trade practice under Colorado law. Obviously we have institutions, institutional investors, state pension funds, the state itself that was doing investment. I'm not sure we're prepared to indicate right now a precise amount of loss, but of course on a national basis we're talking about billions and billions of dollars of loss.
Just to clarify, because you said your case is a bit different, do you have evidence against S&P that the federal government does not?
No, I would say it's the same basis of essentially the same evidence. The fact of the matter is that the federal government has some statutes that are a little different from ours. From a statutory perspective, the best avenue we have is a deceptive trade practice under Colorado law, essentially falsely advertising to the public that they did in fact objectively and independently analyze these residential mortgage-backed securities pools.
You express confidence about the government's case. As you know, ratings agencies in the past have been able to shield themselves from liability, citing the First Amendment. How is the government going to be able to counter that First Amendment argument?
Well, from our perspective, false advertising is not protected by the First Amendment. If you say this is the standard and quality of our product and we can prove that you knew otherwise, that's not protected speech under the First Amendment.
Can you tell us why S&P is singled out here? Should we expect legal action against Fitch and Moody's as well?
I'm not in a position to speculate on that today. Obviously, S&P was a very big player, the dominant player in this marketplace, played a very important role in rating these securities that were at the essence of the financial collapse. Where the investigation will go from here, I'm not going to speculate.
Why is the SEC missing from the lawsuit? Can you comment on that?
Why are they missing from the lawsuit?
Yes.
I am not commenting on that other than I think it's publicly acknowledged that the SEC has been investigating this matter.
And I guess one other question a lot of people have is why not go after any individuals along with the company?
I can only speak for Colorado. I can't speak for the federal government. I can't speak for other states. This was an institutional problem. As I say, the S&P as a rating organization was holding itself out in incredible number of documents their annual reports, their filings with the with federal government with government agencies, saying they were wholly objective, wholly independent. We believe we have compelling evidence that they were not, as I say, it's primarily an institutional problem, and we think we ought to hold the institution accountable for that.
We know there had been some previous settlement talks with the government prior to this lawsuit. Speaking for Colorado now, would the state be open to some sort of out-of-court settlement?
We're always open to out-of-court settlement. And in fact, a lot of these cases of this nature that we've brought under the Colorado Consumer Protection Act do in fact settle out of court. But at least at this point in time, S&P has not been willing. Most of their negotiations have been with the federal government, and while the states have been aware of those negotiations, there have not been any independent negotiations between S&P and the states, at least from the perspective of Colorado.
In terms of just the legal strategy, if you will, here, is this case similar to anything we've seen in the past, such as several years ago, of course, there was the case against Big Tobacco involving several states? And is that how you see something like this playing out?
Well, you know, eventually there was 46 states in the tobacco litigation. I think you said at this point there's 16 states, and that conforms with my notion of what's involved. I do know that just this morning I've been contacted by a couple of other states, and their investigations were not as far along, apparently, as the states that have already filed. So I would certainly suggest that more states may get involved. How many, I can't speculate.
And are you in the process of sharing information with other states?
Absolutely. There's been a working group for several years among several states. As you know, a couple of the states filed some time ago. Connecticut, Mississippi, I think California had filed before, or maybe they just filed yesterday. But in any event, there have been a significant exchange of documents.
Based on some of the other cases you brought under the Colorado Consumer Protection Act, what's the track record in terms of winning those cases?
I would say we win the vast majority. We obviously don't file, you know, we're committing public resources here. We don't file cases unless we believe there's significant evidence that supports our theory in the case. And we've looked at this very carefully and believe that there is sufficient evidence to prove our allegations in the lawsuit.
What kind of reforms do you think the ratings agencies need at this point? What would you like to see as the outcome of this case?
Well, I think you have to look at this on two levels. Number one, if they're going to advertise that they're absolutely independent and objective, they have to be that. And something has to take place in these organizations, some kind of structural changes to make sure that they aren't motivated by retaining market share and profit. If they're representing to the public, that they're not motivated by those things. The other question we have to look at is this whole issue of the fact that the entities that are putting an investment on the market pay these guys to do the rating. Is that the kind of system we ought to have in the United States, and can we have the objectivity that we need given that kind of a rating system, or do we need to do something differently?
Colorado's Attorney General John Suthers. We'll end on that question. Thanks so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm Rhonda Schaffler. This is Reuters.